What's happening, guys? Back at you with another video. So we finally come to that video, the video that where I talk about and basically list off the top 10 movies of 2022. So this year has brought a lot of movies, whether they be good, whether they be bad. There was definitely a lot of movies that came out this year. So basically in this video, I'm going to be listing off the top 10 movies, probably a couple honorable mentions also. Basically, this is my list for the top 10 movies of 2022. And also, too, I'll probably give off my top 5, maybe my top 5 favorite movies of 2022 also. But let's go ahead and get into this video. All right, starting off with a couple honorable mentions. So basically, the way that I was doing this video is just this video, well, for the top 10 at least, for the top 10 best movies of 2022. This is just movies I think that were the best, basically going off of how they were, how the writing was, the stories, things like that. You know, this is not necessarily my picks for like top 10. Like, this is not like necessarily my ultimate favorites. Maybe there's a couple favorites in this list, but not all these movies I would consider like a top favorite for me personally for the year of 2022. But, you know, putting my favorites aside, basically rank this list and put this list together based on how well the movies were, how well the stories were, how they were written, and things, different things like that. So that's how basically how my list is going to go. But we're going to start off with a couple honorable mentions, getting into this top 10 list. And the honorable mentions that I'm going to start with is the first one is going to be Barbarian. So Barbarian is a movie that I recently actually watched to see if it was actually any good. Like, I heard a little buzz on it. It wasn't necessarily on my radar this year, but I heard a little buzz on it going later into the year. So I decided to go ahead and check it out and see if it was noteworthy to put on my list. I gotta say, it's definitely something different. It was a movie that surprised me, and just on how intriguing and kind of interesting it was, and just it was overall creepy and just unexpected. It was unexpected. There's definitely unexpected twist in this movie. Once you like think you know what's going to happen, it spins it and does something unexpected. So I had to give it up for the story and the writing in this movie, and that's why I put it on as an honorable mention, because I think it definitely deserves a little shout out, at least for being one of the movies of 2022 to actually kind of check out. You know, moving on to another honorable mention is going to be, this is actually a two-part, two movie kind of honorable mention, and that's going to be X and Pearl. This movie was definitely different. Same with Barbarian. I heard a little buzz about these movies, so I decided to go and check them out, see if they'll be noteworthy to put on the list. And I think they are. They're definitely noteworthy to put on the list. These movies are different. They're thrilling, kind of creepy too. You know, kind of along the lines of horror. This is kind of it's kind of suspenseful thriller horror, I would say. You know, and it definitely does tell an interesting story along with X. You know, the first movie that came out was X, and it tells an interesting story, but then we get the pretty much prequel story to a character from X in Pearl, and that tells an interesting story too. And I'm very interested in the third movie that's coming out in 2023 called Maxine, where it's going to continue the story of X. So I'm definitely interested in that, and I'm intrigued by what they're going to do with that movie. But I gotta say, this one definitely deserves a shout out on how it was overall. Definitely was surprising, intriguing, interesting, creepy, suspenseful, and thrilling. All right, but now we're going to get into the actual top 10, and this is my actual list of top 10. Like I said, not necessarily my favorites, although some favorites might be in this list, but this is just basically what I thought were the top 10 movies that at least I saw, because let's face it, I didn't see every single movie this year. I did watch quite a bit this year, but I have not seen every single movie this year. So this is basically the top 10 movies that I saw that I think are the best of 2022. So kicking it off with number 10 is going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I like this movie so much. It was definitely a great addition to the MCU. Definitely some mixed reviews on it, but I'm one of those people that actually enjoyed it. I like how they were able to bring Sam Raimi in, and he was able to give us his style of, bring his style to this movie, where, you know, the Raimiisms and the campiness, the horror, and things like that. I like how how he was able to come in and bring his own style to this movie. And just overall, this movie was pretty good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I liked it. Like the character of Doctor Strange in this. I like the character, and, you know, pretty much the sort of villain of in Scarlet Witch. And overall, I thought it was a great movie. Moving on to the number 9 spot, and that's going to be Avatar: The Way of Water. I was definitely surprised with this movie. Like I said before in previous videos, not the biggest Avatar fan. I have grown to like the first Avatar movie, but it wasn't a movie that I typically went back to watch a whole lot. But I recently watched it right before watching this movie, and like I said, I grew to like it a little bit more. But upon watching this movie in theaters, I gotta say it's definitely a cinematic experience. The visuals and how visually stunning the movie is, definitely a better story to the first movie. And actually, this movie has got me interested in the Avatar sequels, which is something I wasn't really necessarily thought I would be like actually saying, or I thought I wasn't really going to necessarily be interested in the sequels. But after watching this movie, James Cameron was able to pull off this movie and actually get me interested in what happens in the story next for the Avatar sequels. So that's one of the reasons why I put it at number 9 on the list. Moving on to the next spot on the list is going to be Bullet Train. This one was another surprise for me. Going off, I just saw the trailer alone and it looked interesting, so I decided to go check it out in theaters. And I gotta say, it was definitely a nice surprise, a nice addition to movies this year for the year 2022. I highly enjoyed this movie. I really do. I gotta say, it's probably one of my favorites this year. It's definitely was interesting story. Definitely a story you kind of have to pay attention to, but like it really was wonderful and clever writing with this story and great action too. Basically this whole movie takes place on one train, so that single location kind of played nicely with the movie and the way the story was set up, and just enjoyed watching this movie. Next up on the list is going to be The Northman. Now, this was a movie that I checked out recently, kind of along the lines of Barbarian and X and Pearl, where it got a little buzz, so I decided to go ahead and check it out. Yeah, so this movie, I gotta say, is a sort of captivating kind of movie. It's definitely interesting the way the story is set up. It's kind of a familiar story, but it brings something a little different to it to where it doesn't feel like it's just a repeated kind of story. So I like the way it is. We get this sort of this story that's kind of familiar, but it's also too brings something a little different. So it's very interesting the way it was, just the way it was shot and the way it visually looks. Honestly, looks great, and I just think that it was definitely a great movie for this year. Moving on to the next movie on this list is going to be Elvis. I gotta say this one was kind of a nice surprise this year. I kind of suspected I would enjoy this movie, going based off of it's an Elvis biopic. We're probably gonna get some Elvis music in here, but the big surprise for me was Austin Butler for this movie. Just the way he just threw himself into his role, taking on this role. You know, the dedication he had to play Elvis, and going through the voice training and things like that, and it still affects him today. Like his voice still sounds like it is in a movie and all that. So I gotta say, I gotta give it up to him for putting the dedication behind, putting dedication into this role and into playing Elvis, and it all paid off. Where he actually recently won the Golden Globe for Best Actor. So I gotta say, it's definitely one of the best movies of the year in my opinion. I enjoyed this movie and definitely deserves to be on the list. Moving on to another movie. This movie was a movie that I checked out recently. It's another movie that I checked out just because it got a little buzz on it, and that is going to be The Menu. I think The Menu is a great written story for a movie, and it really was a kind of a surprise this year. I was not really expecting a movie. This movie wasn't really on my radar. I wasn't really expecting to actually be intrigued and interested in this story or interested in this movie, but it changed my mind, and it really was a nice surprise. Watching this movie, like I said, it was definitely interesting. It was definitely intriguing, and just speaks to the artistry of cooking and being a chef and all that. And it had an interesting story to tell with that. Next up on this is going to be Glass Onion. I like this movie so much. Premiered on Netflix recently, and I saw the first Knives Out movie a couple of days before this one for the first time, and I liked that movie, so I was definitely waiting for Glass Onion to check out Glass Onion. And I gotta say, I really like this one. I like the whole murder mystery aspect of movies, and this one is definitely cleverly written for the story for the movie. I like how it was set up. I like how it goes through the different stages of solving this mystery. Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc is an awesome character, and just his great detective skills and trying to figure it out. And you see him going through a process of solving this mystery is honestly pretty awesome in this movie. And I'm glad they're going to be making another one because I enjoyed these two movies so far already. So I'm definitely excited for that third one. And this movie, I think, definitely deserves to be on the list. Moving on to the next movie is going to be Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This one is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. I think this is one of the movies that just makes you feel something, and the way this movie was dealt a bad hand with the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman and, you know, having to deal with filming during the pandemic and all that, I gotta say they pulled off a magnificent movie, a beautiful movie, really. And I just got handed to them for being able to do that and pulling off this movie. And I think it definitely deserves to be on this list for one of the best movies of the year. I enjoyed this movie so much. I saw it twice in theaters. That's how much it tells you how much I actually enjoyed this movie. Just the way it makes you feel, the way the story is, and just the way the acting is in this movie. All incredible across the board. Um, Also proves to show on the acting, Angela Bassett recently won the Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actress for her role as the Queen, Queen Ramonda. I was rooting for her. I was definitely rooting for her, and I was so glad that she won for this movie, because she's such an amazing part in this movie, along with all the other cast in this movie, and just the way they're able to tell the story, and make you feel something. Just the different things going on in this movie. Honestly, it's one of my favorites of the year, and I definitely think it deserves to be on this list and be one of the best movies of the year. Moving on to the next one, we get to Top Gun Maverick. Now, like I said in the previous video, if you had told me that Top Gun Maverick was going to be one of my favorite movies of the year, was going to be one of the best movies of the year, I probably would have laughed at you. I wouldn't have believed you at all. Now, no diss to the first original Top Gun movie, which I do like, but it's definitely not one of my top favorite 80s movies on the list. But nonetheless, I still like it somewhat, you know. But going into this movie, I was still on the fence. Like, I was even on the fence of even watching this movie or going to check it out. You know, but I decided to go ahead and just, you know, give it a chance and check it out. And, you know, I was questioning, do we need a sequel after all these years? Does Top Gun even need a sequel? But lo and behold, after watching that movie, I came out the theater and I was the experienced. The the way I felt about this movie, I was saying, wow, that was incredible. I gotta say, in my opinion, it's better than the first movie, better than the first original Top Gun movie. And I gotta say, this movie was definitely a cinematic experience, something that you should experience in the theaters. So I gotta say, I gotta hand it up to Tom Cruise for his dedication with this movie, because he did fight to have this movie in theaters specifically instead of going onto a streaming service. And I gotta hand it up to him. He was right. This was definitely a cinematic experience to where it's a movie you have to experience in theaters. Um, you know, it was a big surprise for me this year. Just the way the use of practical effects and practicality of things they were able to do. They literally trained the actors to, you know, actually fly and train them in the jets and all that stuff. So the use of practicality paid off with them, because this was definitely a experience watching this movie in theaters. So I gotta hand it up to them. Definitely one of the best movies of the year. But we get to the number one top spot, and that is going to be The Batman. This is a Batman film that I kind of was waiting for. This is the, you know, telling the story of Batman. A lot of times we didn't really get that detective side of Batman, and this movie dove right into that, being showing him why he's one of the greatest detectives. You know, giving us that detective work, giving us this story along the lines of, like, just it's a compelling story, keeps you intrigued, it keeps you interested, and it's like it's definitely a more gritty, dark story for Batman that we've seen. Um, like, I just like the things they're able to do with this movie. Different things. Matt Reeves was definitely um, an intriguing part of this movie, to where, like, when he was announced as the director, I was like, definitely, I'm on board with that. Let's go with Matt Reeves as this. You know, we get Robert Pattinson when he was announced as Batman. I decided that I wasn't going to prejudge him. I'm going to give him a chance. We'll see what he does with the role of Batman. I got to say, he plays a great Batman. Bruce Wayne, on the other hand, definitely needs a little bit of work, or at least more fleshed out on the character of Bruce Wayne. But I got to say, when he comes to his Batman, playing Batman, he did a great job with it. And I just like the overall story they're able to tell with this, with the Riddler coming out as the villain, and having these other side characters too, with the Penguin and, like, Catwoman, and, you know, I think they're able to tell an interesting story with this movie. You know, I'm definitely can't wait for a sequel. But yeah, I think it's definitely, in my opinion, the best movie of the year for 2022. Let me know down in the comments though, if you were to pick the best 10 movies of the year, what would they be? But we're going to go ahead and get into some of my top favorite movies of the year. This won't be in a specific order really, but we're going to go ahead and start. I gotta say, one of my favorite, some of my favorite movies of the year were definitely on the list. Not all of them were my favorites, but some of them were. I gotta say, some of the ones that let me try to go ahead and go through this list kind of quick, so the video's not too long for y'all. Some of my favorites of the year, I gotta say, going off the list, is going to be Bullet Train. Bullet Train was definitely a awesome movie to watch this year. Glass Onion definitely was pretty cool to see. That was definitely one of my favorites. I say Prey. Prey was definitely an interesting movie. I like how they're able to bring the Predator franchise back to a good start, or not good start, but like good stepping off point for the future, to where we could maybe have better movies. Weird with the Weird Al Yankovic story movie, biopic, whatever. Great parody on biopics themselves. I thought that was definitely a fun and comedic watch. I gotta say, Scream. Scream was definitely one of my favorite movies to watch this year. I love the Scream movies and everything they bring, and definitely can't wait for the sixth movie. Another favorite definitely was the Batman. Like I said before, the Batman probably one of the best movies of the year. Definitely enjoyed the Batman. Let's see, another favorite. Probably say definitely Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was definitely one of my favorites this year. Might be my number one favorite this year. Might be my number one favorite. It's an incredible movie. Amazing, beautiful movie. Like I said, Top Gun Maverick definitely was a favorite. Did not expect that. Definitely a big surprise for me saying that. But I did not expect it to be one of my favorites. But nonetheless, it actually is one of my favorites this year. Probably gotta say also too, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was one of my favorites this year. Also, just like MCU movies in general, and I like the character of Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch and some of the other characters we have in here. Good story. Like how they brought Sam Raimi in. So some of the reasons why it's one of my favorites. Yeah, but I think that might be most of my favorites from this year. A couple of my favorites from this year, yeah, that probably be most of them right there. A lot of other movies I did enjoy like that, but if I had to make a list of my top favorites, those might be the ones that I pick for now, for the year of 2022. A lot of great movies came out this year. So definitely looking forward to the year of 2023 and seeing what they bring with that year for movies. So we'll see how it goes. Definitely be on the lookout for my next video coming out pretty soon. It will be the most anticipated movies, my most anticipated movies, like personally mine, my most anticipated movies of the year of 2023. So make a video on that list of videos, so be on the lookout for that. But I'm going to go ahead and close out this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Remember, if you want to be a part of Team Legendary, all you gotta do is subscribe and turn notifications on so you know I post another video. Hope you all have an awesome day, and remember, be legendary.